Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check mic 1. Check mic 2. Check mic 3. Check mic 4. Check mic 4. Check mic 4. Check mic 4. Check mic 5. Check mic 6. Check wireless. Check mic 7. Check mic 8. Check mic 9. Check mic 10. Check mic 11. Check mic 12. Check mic 12. Check mic 13.
All right, good evening. Let's call to order with the salute to the flag. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our August work session. We will start tonight with our superintendent's items and reports. So, Dr. Stage, would you like to kick us off?
Absolutely. Just for board information, fall sports did officially start today. Was able to speak to the football coach and the girls soccer coach. I hope to see everyone else. It's great to have all the kids back in the buildings and on the property. You're starting to feel the buzz of teachers starting to come in and get ready. We are working like mad to fill all of our vacant positions. Buildings look fantastic. Wrapping up some projects, so excited for next week, and hopefully our next meeting is on the 20th, which will be after the first teacher day, and I'll probably give a little bit bigger report at that time, but still some things to work out, so we're doing well. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stage. Next, we have no updates for Blast IU17. So, Ms. Cooper, anything on the Career Center?
We have our first meeting after the summer break on Thursday, but they also do have the LPN graduation on Thursday for their adult program at 7, and I will hopefully be getting there after the 5:30 meeting.
Thank you. PSBA, Mrs. Minnick?
I have no report.
All right, thank you. So next we'll move on to solicitors' items and reports. Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Stage and I have been working on several personnel matters and several contractual problems. They're an ongoing, and we have no updates at this time for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So next we'll move on to a discussion around our financial business. So we have our typical listing of the bills, general fund checks, cafeteria bills, secretary treasurer report, and our EIT report. Dr. Sage, anything to share, anything there?
No, that one is pretty straightforward.
Okay. Any questions from the board on any items in financial business? Okay. So next we'll move on to personnel. Dr. Sage, would you mind giving us a summary of what we're looking at for personnel this month?
Absolutely. So this is an incomplete list currently. So we have some resignations. We're working to fill those resignations probably as we speak. You're looking at, we are bringing back, actually I think one of the custodians is returning, who left us but came back. So he just missed us so much he decided to come back. New coach for junior high volleyball and a couple volunteers. But what you will see next week is you'll see several professional staff and probably several support staff hires. We're trying to fill those positions before the first student day on the 26th.
Okay. Any questions from the board on the personnel items? Okay, next we can move on to contracts and agreements. So we have 3 on the agenda for this month, ESS Northeast, ESI, Employee Assistance Group, and the Team Tutor Agreement. Dr. Sage, can you just give a summary of those, please?
Absolutely. So the only addendum that you'll really notice on the ESS was to create a situation where we have to fill a long-term vacancy. It's more of because it has to be a certified person, so a long-term sub. Consider a medical leave, paternity and maternity leaves, things like that, and be able to work with ESS and still retain people in those roles for that time period. So that was the real change to that, and that's it's less than our normal daily rate, average daily rate for teachers, so it's still a cost savings to us, but also allows us to fill those through ESS. ESI, that is our employee assistance program. It gives opportunities for all staff members, a variety of benefits, mental health, counseling, financial health and counseling, college advising, tuition. It's really, truly a huge resource when you sit down and look at it, and it touches on all aspects of life. And it's just something to help our staff, all of them. And we've had it for several years. We had it through the Northern Tier Insurance Consortium, but we have to update our contract with them every so often, I think, yearly now.
Is that for just the staff, or does that include the staff's family members as well?
Yeah, so this also applies to staff's family as well. And then Team Tutor. Team Tutor is a software program that has a variety of packages, things that they can offer. Just to be honest with you guys, we typically use this to meet some of the IEP needs, strategically SDIs within an IEP. That helps us meet those goals for our students. So we needed to renew that agreement as well for this upcoming school year.
Okay. Any further questions on the contracts and agreements? All right, next I'd like to go back a little bit. I realize that the agenda tonight did not include our committee report outbriefs as they typically do, so let's, just, well, we can go back to them, just do a quick run through of the committee reports, even though they're not listed here. So I guess let's start, I can't remember what order we typically go in, but policy. Do we want to start with the policy committee first?
Everybody get a nice big cup of coffee because we went through a lot of policies today. So, all right. So we reviewed a number of policies that have updates from PSBA in relation to new legislation on Title IX that came into effect August 1st. Some extensive changes. So what we went through them. We would like to keep these as first read, all the Title IX policies, just so that we can make sure the team has a chance to look through those. We are going to recommend a couple other policies move to second read, but I wanted to note that some pretty extensive changes to the language, and we just want to, give everyone a chance to look at that information. With regard to, we have two policies that were updated, had some PSBA updates on hazing and bullying and cyberbullying. We're going to keep those, also recommend that we keep those as first reads as well. Went through, made some edits, in line with our practices to date, but we actually wanted to add, we had the option to add some more stringent penalties as an option that could be in relation to putting in financial penalties. And that was actually built in by PSBA into the hazing policy, but we'd actually like to extend that same language over to our bullying and cyberbullying policy as well. So you will see those edits before, when they go to second read, so you can take a look at that. But we actually thought it reinforced our commitment to how serious we really, really do take these, and offer our administrators another level of penalty that can be put in place if we have instances where hazing or bullying are being reported. There's also another item that can be added where diplomas are withheld until those until the penalties are paid as well. So, it just really we feel like we had a really good discussion about how important we see these policies, and we really want to make sure that it's something that's reinforced in the school district as well. So you will see those as second reads next month with that adjusted language. We had a couple, and then there were a couple of policies on uncompensated leave that was a first read. We want to keep those first read just so that can be checked by HR. We want to make sure that the recommendations that we put in place there correspond to all existing contracts and everything like that. We didn't want to unintentionally supersede language that exists. So again, we'll just have HR take a look at those edits to make sure that it's in line with our existing practices. And then we have a personal necessity leave policy, which was very similar to a policy that we actually looked at last month, and we are really trying where we can to streamline. So we're going to have Christine pull that policy, look at it, and see if there's duplication, and how we can just continue to try to make this more efficient and effective so that we don't have dueling policies that could counteract one another as well. So a lot there. And then we have a handful of policies that we actually are recommending to move to second read this month just because they did have minor changes. We think they're policies that can move forward. That's the one around dating violence. It's 252. There's a policy around opening exercises, moment of silence, flag displays that we'd like to move forward. One of the new edits to that policy is just directing the district to annually provide a moment of silence for September 11th, which we already do. So we thought that that was, very in line with what we're already doing. Maintaining professional adult student boundaries. There was no changes that we, had any concerns with. That's very aligned with how we are acting currently. And volunteers and chaperones, which when we went over this policy, we realized that the policy committee may have reached a milestone in that we may have finally gotten through all the policies because we put this one into place 3 years ago. So, yeah, so we're expecting cake and, cupcakes, to celebrate. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a never-ending cycle, but we finally made it back to one, so.
Back full circle.
Yeah, so. Anyway, so as you can see, we went through a lot tonight, a lot of really heavy policies, a lot of edits, but again, we're recommending that we move a few of these on to second read, keep the majority for first read, and then we'll have everyone look at them again next month before we vote on them officially. So I think that's everything. Did I miss anything, Cindy, Kathy Jo? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much to that committee. Great work there.
Yeah.
All right, so next we'll move on to curriculum and instruction. Mr. Jones.
The curriculum committee met and Quest Tech, we had an update. One was they're developing a plan to have a representative at our meetings, so we're discussing that. The other is the district is developing plans of how to deal more streamlined with any IT issues with Quest Tech. Obviously they're new, and so it's just making certain we're have those, we can deal with any technology issues in a streamlined fashion. With regarding the schools, everyone is busy working in the buildings, getting prepared for the school year, schedules, materials, supplies, and onboarding. Mrs. Rhodes talked about the book study that we spoke about last meeting, where she's been leading the way on a trauma training across the district of how to deal with trauma in the classroom within the school district. They've had a lot of individuals that took part of that. They have now a trauma team that is formed, and they're going to have training for those individuals as part of that team to be certified, and then work on with the team as how to develop plans to assist within the district. We spoke about the teacher and service days. There's going to be 4 at the beginning of the school year, which are going to be doing NUMIS training at all different levels with regarding the different curriculum and training to get ready for school. And last was discussed a curriculum mapping and setting forth a plan of how to get one common platform of all of the curriculum mapping from, kindergarten through senior year, and then that would also be available to the community once that can happen. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to finance, buildings, and grounds. No update? All right. And then how about extracurricular? Anything to, nothing tonight? Okay. All right, so let's go to section 7 on policy. So this is basically what Mrs. Smart summarized for us as a result of the policy committee this evening. Any additional questions or conversation from the board on the policies? Nope. All right. Looks like all the questions were answered previously then. Okay, next we'll move on to 8, curriculum instruction. We have nothing on the agenda for this month for that item. So section 9, transportation. We have a summary of the final transportation costs from the past school year, a few bus upgrade requests, and approval of the driver list for the upcoming school year. Do we have any questions or conversation items for the board for transportation?
So I have a question. This transportation cost is for last year. Do you know if we'll be doing the gas reimbursement cost again this year?
Yeah, it's open for conversation. We started that 2 years ago. We've kept it in. For Jason, who's new, and as a reminder, we have gas cards for drivers, and we reimburse contractors for diesel that over $3, the difference. Correct?
Can you just do a total of what that cost us for last year, so we have a total of how many times over $3 and they use the card and what the total expense was?
Yeah.
When does the contract come up? Is that in the fall?
Yeah, it should be signed soon. Typically, we try to get them to you by September. We've had sometimes where we don't get them all signed to you by October.
So we did this for the last 2 years. So Jenny, can you get the total cost for the last 2 years
Yeah.
with that agreement?
We usually get a better rate on gas, and we have a contract with Dandy. We don't get we don't buy bulk. We could have, but we don't think we go that route. Yeah, we don't do that. My bad. We talked about it. A lot of things rattling around.
On item B for the bus upgrade requests, I see the agenda mentions Chambers and Jenkins, but we only have attachments for Jenkins. So there's nothing. Are we waiting for something from Chambers? Or?
So yeah, my guess is either Chambers changed their plan, or they have yet to submit it, and it'll be here by the 20th.
Okay, so if that is, we'll get it by next week if we need to approve it then. Okay.
Yeah. It looks like all of them are mechanical upgrades. They technically look all older than what they've, they're getting newer. The only one that's like the bus 112, and I remember Route 112. That bus was in much need of replacement. So, yeah.
So the upgrade will cost us more then, because it will be a newer bus.
It always depends on the formula, which includes the ridership, the age of the bus, the miles driven, loaded versus unloaded. It's a complicated formula, which it may increase the cost, pay out to them, but it may not. It could be a shorter run, it could be more efficient in terms of fuel usage. So it could go either way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions on transportation? Okay, next section, buildings and grounds. Nothing on the agenda for this month for building and grounds. So next section is other. For this month, we have a topic around revisiting our board meeting dates and our calendar for the next 12 months. So everyone should see the proposal. And there were a few options that were worked. I think we're presenting what we're called option 1 here. Basically, in summary, the recommendation is moving to 1 meeting a month that will sort of combine the work session, regular session into 1 per month. And in most cases, it's going to be the second Tuesday of the month, I believe is what we're looking at, except for December, which we always do that the first Tuesday. So everyone should have that copy in front of you. Any questions or conversations from the board on that recommendation?
So as soon as something came up, we'd have call it a special meeting.
Yeah. I foresee, like, even though we might have, and this is, remember, I work for you guys. But if we need to, I would work with whoever's the president or the vice president to make sure that if there was ever an emergency, we'd have a meeting right away.
Yep. Like I would fully expect, for example, in the spring, we may need an extra work session for budget planning season possibly, right? Or yeah, if there's a full agenda in a given month, we need a separate work session, then we will definitely do that.
Okay, so I have a few comments. I totally get life-work balance, believe me, I get it. But I believe that we should be having 2 meetings a month. I think the work session allows us to review the agenda, ask questions, think about how we're going to vote or what we need, if we need more information. We have that week to the following meeting to gain that information and knowledge, and then make a educated or informed decision and vote. We don't meet twice a month, every month. November, December, I think it's July and August, we only meet once a month. I just think we need the 2 meetings a month to be present and up to date, knowledge of what's going on, and actually allow people who, if they want to come and have questions, not just 1 meeting a month to attend in case they have to work. They have 2 options to come in once they see the agenda, because the agenda is not posted until the Monday afternoon before the work session. So I believe that they would have either Tuesday of the work session or Tuesday of the meeting to voice any concerns that the citizens might have, or parents, students, anyone. It gives them more opportunity and access to the board as a whole. That's just my thoughts, and I don't know. That's how I feel.
What was the reason for entertaining 1 meeting a month?
Yeah, just based on some prior feedback, prior discussion amongst the board, right? And I think we assessed other districts in the county, and there's differences. Some do meet just once a month, some meet twice a month, so.
What was that outcome? I didn't see an outcome.
I apologize. So there's about, I would say, it's about a 30 to 70 split. 30% meet once a month, 70% meet twice a month. The ones that meet twice a month, they do have work sessions. Work sessions look different than our work. Everything looks different. When there's 1 meeting a month, do kind of like what we do now, committees prior, or they have committees on that second night of the month, and then get together to have their voting meeting. So that's the knowledge. I apologize for not getting back to you about that. That's my fault. I got distracted. Right, so I guess work sessions don't require public comment periods, but we do, and that's fine. And I'll do whatever the board tells me to do. I'll show up whenever you tell me to show
I
up.
just think it makes us more transparent if we're more visible and accessible.
So I just want to make a quick comment on that. So I think we're accustomed to, I'm good either way, but I just want to make sure we're accustomed to the way we do things right now, but there are other alternatives of way we can present at a board meeting. We might have to get the information quicker, sooner, change the date and time that we do get it, but there are many school boards that do 1 meeting a month, and they do very well. They might get the information at a different time, give us more time to look it over, more feedback. I think it can be done. Again, I'm not against it or for it, but I think there's just ways that we may have to change in how we do things to make things work for us.
And to respond to Jason real quick, Jason, perfect example is if the board so chooses for us to release our agenda at different times, we'll do whatever the board asks us, or we'll make ourselves available, and whether we change or stay the same. This is your guys' meeting, not ours.
You can always alter, right? If we try this and go
Absolutely.
1 meeting, we could always, and we felt like we needed to change to go back to 2, we could always do that as well.
Yep, absolutely. And if there's any feedback from the board on, if maybe we go hybrid, maybe some months we do 2, we do 1, right? If we look at sort of a typical calendar year, we know there are some months that are heavier, right, than others. That's a possibility. The other thing to assess too is, as you'll see in the option layout in front of you, we're still going to visit every school once a year. right, with several meetings here in the admin office. There are some other options, or if we want to get to each school twice a year, right? So that feedback is definitely welcome as well if you feel like we should be out and about more versus here more. So definitely several different options that we could consider. Yeah, yeah, and Christine does have several options that she pulled together of what those could look like if anyone's interested. Yeah. Okay, any further questions, conversation on?
Mike, I do have one. I get to use the I'm new, I didn't know. I made the mistake of not bringing up something during the transportation part. So on the fuel cost for the district and how much we're paying, why do we not do a shared service, or why do we not go out and bid our fuel usage every year to certain companies? We can get a much better rate if we go out to Buell, Mirabito, different agencies, and go to them and say, instead of buying 5,000, we're going to buy 60,000 gallons of diesel. What can you give us at our best rate? They will then in turn buy futures of the fuel. Numerous school districts do this on a it's every year, it's continuation of that, where you will buy that and say, we will buy up to 50,000 gallons. You'll have you'll go in and say, we think we're going to need at least 40,000 gallons, but we could get up to 50,000 gallons. And they will give you a lot cheaper rate on your fuel cost. And Danny can participate in that as well. But your big fuel providers, you can reach out to them, they can have a bid opening. We might be able to save quite a little bit of money at the district side, instead of just reaching out to Dandy, because there's no competition on the Dandy side.
I'm going to say, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I know we talked about that. I'm wondering if the contractors pushed back on that a little bit. I cannot remember, but we can revisit that.
Let's look into it.
absolutely.
I think it's,
Well, if the contractors want us to contribute to their diesel costs, then they should be willing to bid out.
Well, the way you look at it is you also, everything will be for fuel, for winter fuels, and everything will be transparent, open. You will allow the vendors or the contractors to order their fuel. They can do the ordering of the fuel, but it's all about the price structure. It's all about buying the futures of the fuel and saying, hey, we're going to buy 60,000 gallons of fuel. I know in my workplace, we buy a couple 100,000 gallons a year easily, but we go out to bid with about 8 other entities, and there's like 35 or 40 school districts that go on this, so we're purchasing over 2 million gallons of fuel. It makes a big difference on a price. I can beat at least by $1 a gallon just on any price that's on the market right now.
Thank you for that. I think we'll be looking into that quickly.
Logistically, how does this work? I mean, where do the bus contractors have fuel tanks at their facilities? Or are they stopping at the local gas station?
Some do, some don't. Right. Some has fueling stations, some just fuel up at
At Andy or
Dandy.
wherever?
Yeah. And I think that might be where we have to do consortium pricing, is what you're asking us to do. And if one contractor buys X amount of gallons, they have it stored. If not, another contractor could have it a futures purchase, but use a card.
Right, correct. There's several agencies, there's several school districts just on the other side. It doesn't matter what state you're in, but there are contractors up in Corning. There's 4 contractors that buy from the school district. They tell them how much fuel they're going to need. The district is what puts the bid out. The district is what handles the amount of fuel, the pricing. They get the rebate in price, the tax exempt on the fuel, and then they will just continue to fill their tanks. So if Chambers or Jenkins or whoever we have that needs fuel, they will just call up and say, I need a fuel load. Or they'll have it come once a week and fill up, but the pricing goes to a much lower cost, and it saves us a ton of money.
Right, and we don't, and I think, just to clarify, and if I'm understanding Jason, we don't actually have to house all this fuel ahead of time. It's just purchased ahead of time, and then you just call for it.
thanks, Jason. Very good idea. Maybe we should look into it. Okay, any further conversation then on the board meeting dates for section 11? Okay, section 12, does the board have any recommended changes to action items for this month? which we've already got. We'll make those updates. Okay, next, visitor comments. I don't believe we have any visitor comments today based on the audience. So next section is board communications. So we have personnel transfers and Sunday facility use through the next month. Any questions on anything anyone sees there? Okay, then last section here, I believe last section. Board discussion items. So we do have one topic on tonight for board discussion, and that's around the merger feasibility study joint resolution between Athens and SARE. So looking for just general conversation here amongst the board. I'll start with, I just wanted to provide an update to the board and to the public on, where we've been recently. We'll get that one next. I think we all know, looking back, I guess it was back in June, Alloy 5 delivered a public presentation, followed up with a Q&A session open to the public, and that was on the heels of them completing the merger feasibility study that we had them under contract for. So that was a couple of months ago. So just want to provide an update on what's been happening since then, or more importantly, what's next. So there was a committee meeting, the merger committee meeting about a month ago, right, which is going to comprise of representatives from both Athens and SARE. And in that conversation, it was agreed that we should sort of do a checkpoint, right, to reassess interest from both school districts to see, is there still interest in moving forward with the potential pursuit of a merger, right, based on what we learned from the study and based on some of the feedback we were getting from the community. For me personally, I think that the study answered some questions, still leaves some questions unanswered. So I feel that before a yes/no vote can be taken on the merger itself, we would have to commit to additional analysis, initial information gathering to be able to make a well-informed vote. So with that, right, what we came out of the last merger committee meeting on was an agreement that we should collectively across the two districts, we should work on a joint resolution that is written together across both districts, common agreed to verbiage that then both boards will agree to vote on at the same time. And really that joint resolution would be intended to assess two things, right? It would be assessed whether or not the boards are committed to continuing with the work necessary to potentially pursue a merger. And then secondly, would assess, is there any interest in more strategic partnerships between the districts as sort of a parallel path while we're doing the continued merger assessment. So that would be like, are we interested in continued partnerships for athletics, maybe sharing teachers, administration, and so on. So the intent there would be to have that written up into a resolution that both boards would vote on. Just want to be clear, the intent of that joint resolution is not to say, are we merging or not, right? It's basically, do we have interest in continuing or not? Now, with that being said, if there's a vote that says, no, we're not interested in continuing, that in effect would be a no vote on the merger as well. So that was what we came out of the committee meeting with. The initial goal was to attempt to have a vote on that tonight, because we knew that was going to be our next time together. SARE was going to try to get their board together at the same time, because we agreed that we need to have common verbiage, but we also need to vote on it at the same time as well. Both boards individual meetings, but same time. SARE was not able to get a quorum of their folks together this evening, so we're going to be looking at other alternatives, and I'll work with the board afterwards to assess some possible dates that we want to get back together that works for us collectively as well as for the SARE board. We're also working on verbiage. So out of that committee meeting, a few of us did start a draft of recommended verbiage for the resolution. I've now been working with Ron Cole, the SARE president, to get their input into that, so that we all feel that both boards have had their ability to influence the verbiage that we're going to be voting on. So Ron and I have talked several times over the past couple of weeks on that. So I anticipate that I'll get a draft, an updated draft from SARE incorporating their verbiage relatively soon, and then I will work with all of you to again, share, right, as necessary, but also try to find a date that works for both boards to meet, so we can do the vote on the resolution at the same time. So that's sort of just a brief update on where we are, where we've been, since there was the last update on this. So Any questions from the board, or I guess any additional considerations on the topic? Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
I do, Mr. Owen. Again, being new, I would just like to ask this. Can at any given time, can a board member ask for a motion to stop doing what we're doing?
Any board member can
At
ask
any
for a
given
motion to
time?
add- Yes, yep.
At any given time, and they can put that motion up to see if anyone seconds it, and then see if the board approves or denies that motion.
Yeah, during any voting session, any board member can request. Right now, we got to go through the formalities of getting on the agenda and, Pat can
But,
be honest.
but
yeah,
what
any board member can.
but
just
what
request
I
that.
just want to make sure I understand this correctly, that if tonight, just putting it out there. What's that?
Not voting.
Right, okay, that's why I needed to make sure. Right,
Yeah.
okay,
In a
but
voting meeting.
but again, I'm just asking that question. Again, not knowing, but that can be done at during a meeting night where we can vote, correct?
I don't know, it has to be on the agenda.
It's got to be on the
Okay,
agenda.
just want to make sure.
Now the rules are you gotta have it
Okay.
publicly on the agenda 24 hours.
Okay. That's what I didn't know. That's what I wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
During the voting meeting. Right, so like back in section 12, recommended changing to future board action items, is where that could be.
Added to the agenda for the next meeting.
So, you know, I have some comments. I guess the first one is this was done as a feasibility study. If you look at the numbers, this is not feasible for Athens taxpayers at any time. There's no benefit whatsoever to our students or taxpayers. Coming from representing the citizens of Ridgebury, Smithfield, and Ulster, we've already been through a merger. Our district is a huge district already. Again, there's no benefit for a merger with SARE. We have tried in the past shared services. It has not worked. I've been on the board for 8 years now, and quite frankly, I'm tired of talking about merger. This taking away time from what we should be concentrating on. You want another meeting. We were supposed to vote tonight. They knew that 2 months ago. Now we have to meet again. It's just continuous, and I'm done. I'm done talking SARE merger. If the feasibility studies show that it's way out of monetary reason. And SRU, even though it says it's going to be open, we all know you're going to do one campus. Like we've already been through a merger. We don't need another merger. And again, no benefit whatsoever to the students. I'm tired of talking about SARE. So I would like to change the agenda for next week and put it on the agenda that we take a vote, yes or no, because we're wasting time that we should be discussing Athens students. We're raising taxpayers' taxes. We should be discussing ways to levy that, not discussing whether we should share services or merge. It's just my opinion.
I had a question asked about the SARE meeting a week ago. They said they weren't gonna vote on it. They weren't gonna vote on it tonight, or
Yeah, it was-
ever vote on it?
No, they were referencing tonight, right? That the initial plan was to attempt to have a vote on it tonight. And my understanding from what I heard when I watched it, as well as talking to Mr. Cole, it was that they just couldn't get a quorum of folks together. Combination of a quorum of folks were not available, and that they did not agree with the initial verbiage as it was provided. So they wanted to be able to update that as well as get a time when.
But
their
we
folks are
asked for
available.
their opinion and recommendations, and we wanted them to review the resolution and make changes,
Correct,
but they did not.
correct.
And, I mean, I watched the meeting and I've read through the comments, the actual discussion. There's a completely inaccurate narrative coming from the SARE School Board about this entire process, about their involvement in it, which does not lend any sort of sense that this is going to be a good faith discussion, and we are just talking ourselves in circles at this point. We entered this seeking knowledge, seeking you know, a community approach, you know, how can we do what's best for all of the families in our very small community, you know, so that we can do that. But if both boards aren't aligned on even how we approach that, to the point that the other school board members are slandering the process and sort of creating a false narrative, it doesn't help or even sort of create any sort of drive for wanting to have those discussions, because it's just not going to be productive. We're just going to keep talking in circles, and you know, I'm not sure what the benefit will be for our students, for our taxpayers, for us to continue to put time into this, if the other school board isn't even willing and is making this out like it's a hostile takeover.
I totally agree, Natalie.
Yeah, I guess what I have to add is, you know, we went into this, we wanted to know what the nuts and bolts of this would look like. Really, the only real meat and potatoes here is what a new campus would look like. We have several different options. I think the cost, with the exception of the do-nothing option that they said was going to be $200 million to do nothing, I know how engineers work and think. The other options, I think, are probably relative to each other. I just don't know if they're plus or minus 50 million each way, but, you know, we can only borrow 100 million collectively. We're flirting in the 200-ish range. My quick math is my tax bill would go up 1.8 times. I can't dump that much on the taxpayer. There was a comment, you know, from the SARE side that they didn't want to be absorbing our debt. You know, the option that would probably be chosen, they'd be having their kids in our buildings, which we've already been paying on and renovating and re-renovating. So I don't know if that was a fair assessment on their part, that we'd be taking on our debt. We'd all be taking on a lot of debt, especially the 7,600 tax parcels in the Athens School District, about.
Yeah.
And I think there's something bigger behind this thing. I don't want to go into it, but I cannot vote yes in favor of this. I was hoping there would have been something in there would have gotten kids off of a bus for an hour and 45 minutes, or however, hour and a half, whatever we got. If anything, it's going to lengthen travel time for some students, and I don't like that. I just want to speak my piece there.
So I make a motion to adjust the agenda to put a vote on next week.
Vote on what, though? The resolution, or what's the vote on?
I want to vote that we're not, the merger is not feasible for us, and not to move forward with any merger talks or shared services.
So the way that the draft resolution was drafted would allow, basically, I don't have a copy in front of me of the draft version, but it would, basically the way it was worded was section 1 was, is there interest in continuing pursuit of the merger? Which means a yes vote would mean just continue to analyze, a no vote would mean kill it, right? So I think that would meet your intent, Captain Joe. I think the second part would be, is there interest in pursuing further strategic partnerships between the districts? And it sort of keeps it open-ended, right? But it's more just to get the commitment. So I think that would also meet what you're saying, is a no vote on that would say we don't do anything further as far as partnership. A yes would be, yes, let's sit down and let's detail out where there can be partnerships amongst the districts.
Wasn't there also about financial in your resolution? Wasn't there also discussion about exploring because that really hasn't been done, was exploring the finances?
That would be, if a yes vote on the first piece, which means further analysis would be done, part of that would be further analysis of financials, community impact, and all that. That would be some of the next steps of, before we say yes, we want to merge, is that the additional analysis that would be needed to get us to a potential yes or no vote after that. But yeah, it'd be financial analysis, additional community input, things that would be needed to answer some of the questions we still had outstanding after the study was completed.
So waiting for Sarah to get their quorum and coming up with another meeting, that's extending this again?
Yep.
Another month or so?
Correct. Yep.
I don't think it needs to be extended. I mean, we've been working on this, like I said, this has been in talks for years. Enough is enough. the feasibility study showed that it's not feasible. And in the past, we have had shared services, and they have not worked out either. So I don't see why we're prolonging this. If they don't want to vote on it, that's, they can do whatever they want, but we need to start thinking more Athens. We need to move forward with our buildings. If we're not going to merge, the study shows we shouldn't merge, then we need to move forward with our buildings, our kids, our curriculum, and stop spending
Are we
our
continuing
meetings
with
with
the
them.
shared sports, or are you recommending we just split?
Well, I think we have co-op agreements right
We have
now,
co-op for 3 sports, right?
2 sports.
Just 2, okay, swimming and soccer.
And that's been working, that's fine, but moving forward, like, every time we go to do a sport, which I don't know why it's always going back to sports, but it is, every time we move forward, either they back out at the last minute, when they get a team, or it's, if
Well,
they
I was
want to
just-
do
I was
sports, then
asking
do
the
all or
question
nothing.
Only because we do have those 2 that we are sharing, and we are co-oping. So I didn't know if
And
not
I did
moving-
vote both on no. It's all or nothing. Why every month do we have to discuss Sayre's business? That we're not,
Understood.
we're wasting Athens' time.
So Chris, you had asked about what would be voting on. Kathy Jo, is your recommendation, are you putting on the agenda to vote on?
Yeah, I'd like to vote on the resolution as a board, just so we can, if we're going to continue to beat this dead horse, then that's fine. But we need somewhere along the line, we need to draw a line somewhere and say, no, we're done. And that's what I want to put on the table. Are we done, or are we going to keep dragging this out?
Well, the resolution is to continue the merger exploration.
But if we go with the first one, we're,
Well, I think it would be if people vote no, then you wouldn't continue that
right.
exploration.
This isn't gonna go away.
Yeah, I would seem to think that after spending the money that we did, we should at least continue that exploration as it's, as this resolution is presented. I think it makes sense. It's not binding anything.
Does anyone have any idea where we're gonna get the funding?
Wasn't that part? No, but isn't that part of it? I mean, that's part of the that's part of the further exploration. I don't know.
It's simple, we grow bonds, right? Is there another way? I'm not aware of. Bond market's not that healthy right now in terms of risk. There's no reimbursement from the state like Plan Time used to do. I think
we're spending too much time on this, and they're not. So that should give you an idea.
I get that part of it. If this was $70 million and we were gonna reimburse half of it, it'd be a different story.
Right.
It's a big tax bill. And, Kathy Jo is right. I mean, we've renovated our buildings, we've re-roofed them, we've re-lamped them. Actually, we don't have to do anything. We have one squeeze point in one of the buildings, as I understand it, where a little bit more room would be beneficial. We really didn't take a good look at that yet. I don't know if one of those options extracts a part of that, if we were to just do that, I don't know. But, and, the other elephant in the room is the teacher's contract, how that would shake out. These are all costs, so I don't know if we can afford it down the road. I'm not just thinking for myself, I'm thinking for a lot of families in our district.
Yeah, it's an expedited procedure.
Any additions? It's been a good conversation. I appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback.
I mean, did Sayre explore an option of a new building for themselves someplace else? I mean, they did,
Is that outside of this study?
Right.
yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe there's nothing I'm aware of. I know they had their own facility study that was done recently. before any of this happened, but I don't know if any of that included potential to do
How many tax parcels did we say were in Sayre, less than 2,000? That's the number I heard, I think I asked someone, maybe it was in one of the meetings. So what are you looking for? You're making a
I'm looking for a
motion?
second
You
on my
want a
motion.
second?
I want a second on the motion that we vote next week, change the agenda to vote next week.
On the resolution.
On which one of these resolutions?
Yeah, so
You want a yes or no?
there are two, actually. 'Cause I gave them everything.
Yeah.
Forward or kill it?
Yeah,
so
so
there's basically two
there's
versions.
one that has it all combined, and then the second resolution actually breaks them out into two separate votes.
But they haven't even agreed to the resolution. So I just want to put something on the agenda to vote, whether we continue moving forward with the resolution, this, merging talks, anything, like, because they haven't even agreed to this.
Craig, have you talked to Jill recently?
Not by phone or not in detail on any of these issues.
I mean,
Well, wasn't it the purpose? To put both boards, basically, on the table to vote, do you want to move forward or no? Do you want to move forward with discussions, or let's stop talking about it?
That was the intent.
Right.
And their answer was the resolution was one-sided and they weren't going to vote tonight.
Yep, and that they want to provide input on the resolution. And what you're, just for the copies you have in front of you, right, there are two different versions of the resolution. The first draft basically combined both sections together, so one vote would vote on both the potential to pursue the merger as well as the potential to pursue partnership. The second really just splits those in two, right, so you can vote on one or the other, right? So that's, the verbiage is very similar, it's just, it's a matter of, do we want to just have one vote, or do you want to have two votes, one vote for each portion of the resolution?
Correct.
that's how I read it.
Correct.
Do you want two?
I think there should be two.
I think there should be two.
Okay, so keep it the split, the feasibility merger, and then the shared
Yeah.
services.
Which I think would be pages 2 and 3 of what that's
Yeah.
what.
Right, but they haven't agreed to any of these. These are our resolutions, because they have not agreed to any. This
But I
is
think if we're
our,
going to move forward with this on the agenda next week, we're likely going to move forward with our own version
correct.
rather than trying to seek consensus on verbiage and timing.
And the second resolution shouldn't be implementation of shared services and partnerships, but exploration.
Yeah. Yep, and we can, again, this was a very draft.
Yeah,
the intent
yeah,
is we're getting a bunch of feedback,
absolutely.
right, but yes.
But they should be separate.
Yeah.
And I'll second, for that to move forward to next week, because we need to get a resolution on
So why
these
does the second one
resolutions.
say act as a preliminary assessment of capability for a potential future merger?
So when this was initially discussed in the committee, right, the idea was we do these both together, right, that if we get a yes vote on the first one, that there's still interest in pursuing a merger, then this was a way to sort of take incremental steps towards what might potentially be a merger, right? So based on the conversation now, if we want to move forward with this, we probably want to reword some of that second one.
That's shady language. as far as
Yeah,
I'm
I
concerned.
don't, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the discussion within the committee of like, the whole idea was, it's just a way of understanding that the study would still take longer. How do we at least get some parallel progress towards partnership, right? And that was what, again, this was a draft based on a few of us, our takeaways from the meeting. It's completely up for any input from any committee member.
I think Michael was trying to just develop a starting point. It's harder to do anything off a blank sheet, but it's easier to kind of start something off of like a kind of like
I appreciate
idea,
Michael
so.
starting and coming up with these ideas, but it has to be, both sides have to come together. And it's, to me, it seems like we're doing all this, and that's not how it should be. They should be working together.
So perhaps then, we can provide out to the board, we can provide the draft of option 2, so we can get any feedback from the board on suggested updates.
But what if they don't want option, like,
Well, but that's, I guess it goes back to, if we're gonna put a motion on the table to add this to the agenda, then we just have to assume we're gonna go in alone, and we're gonna vote alone. Because
Right.
we're not gonna get, because based on my talks with Ron recently, we're not gonna get alignment on the verbiage or timing of a vote by next week.
What's the importance, significance of next week?
I just wanted to
Why
be
was
done
such a
talking
vote
about
this?
it. Because it's taken 8 years now, we've been talking about this for 8 years. How much longer do we have to talk about this?
I'm just saying, I don't think there's any deadline we need to abide by here.
Right.
But I've got to agree with Kathy and Jason. Like I said, we can't afford it.
I'd rather just-
Guthrie is a bigger part of this, and no one wants to admit it. I don't care if I hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm tired of soft playing around this thing.
I'd rather just put it, put it to rest, or with the new school year starting, we have other things to be concerned about. So, this just keeps hanging. This is just there all the time.
So what do you want a second for?
I just want to be done with it.
Second.
We have a second
We
with
have a
Natalie.
second.
I was gonna say, we could
Third.
also vote that we're tabling it until they come back
I
if they
don't
want
either.
to reignite.
I still don't know what they're voting on, though. I mean, I'm not gonna vote if I don't know what the motion or the second
I
is.
guess it's simple. We're either going to continue or we're going to kill it.
Yes.
That's how I'm reading it.
Which again was the intent of page 1 of the second.
Mr. Owen, real quick, because I just want to make sure as well that we have us, because there seems to be back and forth on this. So we have 2 resolutions out,
2 options.
2 options of that. So what's being put out there is for the next time we come together and we vote on this, we are voting no on option 1, on resolution 1, correct? No or yes?
Or yes.
I was gonna
Or,
say yes.
that's what I'm saying, yes, I'm saying yes or no, obviously, you didn't let me finish, but then we also have resolution 2, I mean, we can tell where everybody wants to go here, so, resolution 2, yes or no?
Correct. Those separate resolutions are option 2. Option 1, which is the first page, it takes both those resolutions, combines them together for one vote. But yes, if we decide we want to go with option 2, that would be those 2 separate resolutions as described in an individual vote for each. That's the second 2 pages.
So it's not an either or. You can get 2 yeses or you can get 2 noes.
Right. Right. If we were to separate it.
Or
The
you
first
can do
version
no
was all together.
Or yes and no.
And this is where you guys get to decide, or kind of pick and choose.
Yeah.
So again, our option is we can, as a board, decide to put it on the agenda next week.
Well, I had a motion and someone seconded it.
So is that a motion and a second for the 2 individual resolutions as drafted?
Not as drafted.
Not as
Or
drafted.
with-
You're gonna have to-
with
you're gonna have to
feedback that
edit
we'll
them.
get between-
And if, I do want to make sure that we are aligned on the language in them. And if you feel that like I'm saying we, this board, I'm not saying with Sarah. I'm honestly, I'm not worried about their timelines at this point. But I want to make sure that we are agreed on the language we are voting on so that people are making a fair decision, yes or no, based on what we've, so that we're not gonna be like, well, it wasn't quite the language that we thought it was.
Okay, so we'll get a draft out.
So then we should be voting just on the language next week.
How can we vote on a
Because we
language in a
can't.
resolution if they're not going to agree to the resolution? Like, is this just us stating? Like,
Well, we
because it
should
says
be
whereas
agreeing.
the Board of
We should be
Education is
agreeing
Sayre
to the
and
language
Athens.
As a board, that we're sending forth.
It's an offer.
So you guys could change the
Right.
language.
Yes.
Just be
This is what we're proposing to do. Will they also accept that?
Because if we all can work on it and agree to the language that we all feel represents us, right? Is that what you're saying, Anna?
Yeah, I think we have to, we have to be clear on what we're voting on. And right now, like, as it's written, I don't think we are all,
just trying to pay attention, so.
So can we just not vote on the resolution and just put out a vote, yes or no? Do we want to continue as a board talks about mergers and resolutions?
I think we still need to have it written down, even if it's a much simplified version, we need to have like the sentence or two that is being voted on, right?
We can make a memo.
And if we vote no, we can never talk about it again? Sorry, Kathy.
Not while I'm on the
I mean, like,
board.
come on, it's silly.
It is.
Yeah, never. It's always going to be talked about. Always. We live in these communities that are this close together with two school districts.
Well, the school board doesn't have to
about 2
discuss
miles
it.
apart. It's always going to be discussed.
I don't think you could ever take that away.
Yeah.
It's something, honestly, I do agree.
I agree,
do agree
yeah.
with Chris on this because it is
That's
something
fine,
that
but
5
it's-
years down the road, 6 years down the road, someone is going to bring it up again.
That's
2
fine,
months down the
but right now, currently, we should be concerned about more Athens things, our buildings.
We are.
Yeah. When have we ever stopped worrying about Athens?
We haven't, but it's
So why are you
constantly
saying
bringing it
that?
up. Because I
You
think
are
our
making a
attention,
lot of
we've
blanket
spent a lot of
statements.
35 minutes now discussing whether we should merge with Sarah or not, and the resolutions and shared services. They have no interest. Or they would have kept tonight's voting meeting, they would have put information and input into the resolutions.
They didn't have a voting meeting tonight.
They were supposed to schedule one. That was the agreement back in July, in
And none
June.
other board could make it.
So they wait till the week before to say, oh, we're not voting. Why didn't they know back then?
They waited until their meeting to say that.
I-
You're making a lot of blanket statements and you don't, have you sat in their meetings? Have you met with them?
I haven't met with them. I watch their meetings weekly, yeah, or when they have them, monthly. I have watched them. Have you been to the meetings?
Yeah, I've watched their meetings,
Okay.
I've seen it.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I've met with them in our joint meetings. And there's several people in there that are very favorable to this.
Then why aren't they speaking up and going through and pushing through and correcting the resolution or making sure that their board is on board so that we can move
I
forward with
think
this?
some of them are trying to do that.
Okay.
At the cost of nearly doubling the taxpayers' school taxes.
If we go with the way the contractor said to do it, then it would. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it that way.
What do you mean?
We had the feasibility study. They gave 3 or 4 scenarios.
Yep.
And it would raise the money. But if we merged, or if we continue on exploring it, it doesn't mean we have to say they are the only scenarios that we can go with. We can keep exploring other ways to do this. We can keep talking. I don't understand why we have to sit here and say, no, we're never going to talk about this. We should always look for better ways to doing things. We shouldn't just arbitrarily say, no, we're done. Why not look for
Costs
better
only
ways?
go in one direction. As time goes on, costs typically go up. They don't go down. By the time we get done talking about this, if we were
Yeah.
looking at the $200 million option, it's going to be $225. I don't
And with the
think there's-
continuing shrinking of our population, eventually it's going to happen.
If it shrinks to nothing, we don't need to do building
Right.
additions. They can just
Exactly.
Come on over.
Exactly.
We're not there right now.
So we can, so why not continue to talk? Why not continue to explore it?
I represent the taxpayers.
Yeah?
Unless some hidden entity doesn't want to say anything, I can't dump that kind of burden on taxpayers, period. That tax bill we just got, I just paid,
Yeah.
double it?
Well, we're not voting to go forward with those scenarios, but why
What
not?
scenarios are there?
Well, we don't know. Why not keep talking and
Well, I
seeing
guess
what's
that's why
going
I asked
on?
the question, did SARE explore the option of building their own new building someplace?
Well, they had their own study done, building study done.
Was
They
there a new
have.
building someplace else?
I don't know. I didn't read their study.
We should ask them.
Right?
Then we'd have to
Exactly,
continue
but then you
Yeah.
have to talk about it. That's why I don't
Seems to me
understand.
like
I'm not saying that
nothing's
we
gonna
should go
happen
with any of these
unless the
scenarios, but why
7,600
sit here and
tax
vote and
parcels
say,
and
no,
have
we're
to
never
chip in
gonna
for it?
talk?
So, I represent the taxpayers, period. I'm done.
Okay, anything further from the board?
So what are we doing?
So we'll get I think we still have it on the agenda for next week. We're adding, this is a topic, we just now just come to agreement on the verbiage that's being voted on. Natalie, I think Natalie seconded it. Any suggestions on how we come to agreement on verbiage? Do we want to,
You could have a committee.
we can roll our sleeves now and we'll write it. I don't think we can adjourn until we have an idea of how we're going to get a resolution that we're going to vote on.
I think you want to walk away with something for,
Yeah.
if that's what's going to happen next week, or you don't put it on the agenda next week, and then wait.
Right, which we already had a motion and a second to add it, so we need to back away from that if that was the
Yeah,
case.
I understand. I just want to make sure that we do it. My only concern is that you guys do your things the right way the first time, and everybody feels comfortable about what you have to. Yes or no? The verbiage or language, verbiage. How about the words you choose? Everybody's comfortable. Whether you're a yes or no. So, without belaboring the point, I think it would be advisable to leave with something that you all can agree on, or it doesn't go on. Just my opinion, I'm an advisor role.
Meaning the motion is to create language that we all agree upon.
Now, I think the motion that you guys have before, that you're gonna vote on moving forward with merger talks or not. Because, to be truthful, Chris and Kevin have a very good point. They'll never stop the conversation.
Right.
What I think the group is trying to determine is whether we're going to continue with this current version of the merger feasibility talk, or are we going to go and continue on a different path with it? Does that make sense to people? Because you can't walk out and put a banner up outside or ask Gannon to rent space to put a billboard out and say, you can't talk about this anymore. We've already made a decision. So, I think what you're trying to do is act upon what's in front of you, and what's in front of you is an 18-month study that is giving you guys information, whether it's 100% to your liking or not. It gave you somewhere to go in terms of making a decision. It comes with numbers, it comes with figures, and I think you have to either investigate further or say, I think I know enough and we need to stop it.
It also didn't address transportation at all, really.
In just my opinion, again, transportation is a unique beast in its own that couldn't be readily resolved until we knew more specifically what our facility structure would look like. And to do 4 or 5 different scenarios would be laborious.
So just my 2 cents on this. On the transportation study, anything is possible. So I might not be for something or for something, but I do know transportation and anything is possible. You can turn a run from 2 hours into half an hour to 45 minutes. It just depends on the runs. It depends on elementary, middle school, high school. Depends on the grade. It depends on the special needs of the students, whether it needs to have an aide on the bus. It all depends. So transportation is really open-ended. We can make anything happen. It just depends on drivers. It depends on staff. It depends on bell times. All those things, they coincide with each other. So I really can't stand here and let transportation be the enemy to this, because it really can be resolved.
Oh, it wasn't an enemy, it's an unknown.
Right. It is an unknown, but I just want to make sure that we all understand that It can happen with transportation. You can make those things work. Whether I'm for or against something, I do have to say, transportation, you can make things so that's not the thing that's holding things up. It can be made. It can be done.
But it's certainly part of it.
Oh, absolutely. As part of anything,
Go
it's
from an hour and 15 minutes to 45 minutes is going to cost us.
right, but then there's also route analysis, and we really have not touched base on a route analysis. We have a company come in, and that's what I brought up during the study.
We have done a route analysis in the past. It was a number of years
I
ago.
was here for that route analysis, Chuck. I'm the one that brought the company in.
Okay.
So, and they did do a good job, but again, every 2 to 3 years, a route analysis is no good. Because those kids graduate, they go from elementary school to high school. They go from elementary, middle school to high school. So that route analysis over a 3-year term is completely changed. So in theory, you should have one done every 5 to 6 years because those kids are going from kindergarten to 6th grade, which is 2 different schools, or going to the high school, which a bell time may change. So that's the problem with the route analysis.
I get that, but every year I ask the question, how long do we have kids on a bus?
Right.
Every year I ask the question, and we get the same answer.
And there's really no state mandate. There's no state mandate that a child has to be on a bus can only be on a bus for an hour. Special needs, they can only be on a bus a half an hour. It really is up to the district's language on how you put that into the, into your, your policies and procedures.
But no one's ever taken action to spend the money to fix the issue. We as a board, or the boards over the years, have never done this. We
So-
try to get as efficient as we can. We balance it all out with money. But to solve that problem, and I don't even know how many students, I don't ask how many students, I just know we got kids on the bus for a long time. Each
Yes,
way.
so we had 4 different, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had 4 different scenarios, correct, when we did this? So in theory, you would have 4 different routing capabilities. They would have to do 4 independent studies because of the districts, they're going to be different. Whether you have an elementary school staying open at Sayre, or you close down SRU, or you open a school, you add on to a school, or you put a brand new school in. It all has to change. So you therefore would have to, like I said, you'd have to have 4 different studies put on for the district. And that is a substantial cost. That is a $50,000 to $100,000 cost to do that route analysis the right way. And that would be those 4 studies. And you can go to several different places that are out there in this country, and they will tell you it's going to be between, it could be anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. I can't give you an exact. It's not cheap. And again, it's something does the district want to look at every 5 years because it changes again. And this is not something, if we did go with this, it completely changes. That's why I was so mad at that presentation, because they had nothing for me on my transportation part, because that's my job. And it's like, it could change. By the time this went into tuition, where it came in, where we had all the schools in place, everything that we just did is completely changed, because by the time we get into that, your kindergartner is now going to be in an 8th grade, or 9th grade, or 10th grade. They all change. The kids, when they get into 10th grade, they start driving. So that all changes, 10th, 11th grade. So it changes the perspective of the whole thing. That's why it's so hard. That's where transportation is a pain. And, do we as a district, do we do a route analysis on this every couple years? I don't know. But I just didn't want people to think that transportation is a huge thing. We can make it happen. It just can be costly for the district.
Exactly, my point.
Pardon my ignorance, but is this something that could ever be a ballot item for the constituents? I can't, okay. Okay.
Okay, so
So the community can't vote on it at any point, it can't go on a ballot.
I was just wondering if the public could vote.
So it would come down to 18 people making the decision.
And as a reference, that's exactly what happened in other districts that have tried to do this successfully or unsuccessfully. It always comes down to the school board members. You guys are the elected representatives of the community at large.
Okay.
Pat, how'd I do?
My other 2 cents to that, and I
that's-
just want to add, and then I'm done, I promise. So I love the idea, from my own opinion, that if sports was put into this play, if you were going to look at something as in sports, I mean, you can't look at that as a perspective of taxes going up is the only, it's the only reason you want to do that. But that also changes everything on bell times. That changes times, what schools do we go to now for sports, right? So if we raise our kids up into school, does that change our league? I don't know enough about that. But if it does, then that means that we are now going to be playing, and you guys might know more about the sports down here than I do, but does that change to where they go to play sports? Do they now go to Williamsport? Do they go to the larger schools, which that entail is going to kill us for drivers because drivers are in a need right now with all of our district. So now we're having drivers leaving a half an hour to 45 minutes earlier to go to Williamsport, to go to all these other areas, when we don't have enough drivers as it is. It's this part that concerns me about this. I love the idea of this maybe making Athens better because we have more intuition, more schools, or the Sarah and Athens combining together. That's a great idea, but it's more than just that. It's everything else. It's just all the small things that concern me a little bit.
It wouldn't change our league.
That's what I'm.
It would only
that's what I
change
was wondering.
possibly the districts, but we already travel
Yep.
all over the place to Williamsport and all over for our district games anyways.
So yeah, while our classification may become larger, that is only going to impact our postseason play and probably some of our non-league games because we would probably try to look to play like-sized teams. But overall, we'd still stay NTL because we're so rural. We could really
So
jump.
we would stay in the NTL league.
And, I know people have always said, well, why don't you play New York schools? You can play New York schools in non-league, but there's been laws passed. I know back in the day, there's some historical perspective that there was a league where we were in a league with Waverly and other New York schools, but there's a sense the laws have changed for interscholastic competition. And while you can play them in non-league, you can't be in their league.
Okay.
Okay, so to move us along, since we want to be here all night talking more about this.
I'm having fun.
Would be the first time.
Yeah, no kidding, maybe not last either. Kathy, Joe, would you mind taking a shot at drafting, or starting with what we had here and making up and circulating it to the board afterwards as a starting point for your recommended vote? And I'm happy to work with you on that, and we can get that to the board. So, yeah, and then we can post it, and if we come to agreement on it by next week, it'll be on the agenda for vote next week. And I'll close the loop back with Sarah as well to let them know that what the board has decided on here.
Is there anything you would like for me to do?
If you want my talking to Bill, and I'll close the loop with Ron Cole,
I would greatly do so.
and then, then from there they can decide how they want to handle it on their side. Because the board's decision here was that we're going to move forward next week. Okay. All right, moving on to the agenda. Future meetings, so we have our next meeting next Tuesday, which is our regular session meeting. It says Lynch, but Mr. Dr. Stage, we may do it here, I believe, instead.
Yeah,
of going to
if you
Lynch.
guys don't mind, can we do it here? School is just not open yet. We don't have students in the building. We usually like to do that when students are in, and we're still trying to get ready for kids to come in, so
So we'll make that update, but same time, 7 o'clock
if you guys are okay with that.
here.
Perfect.
All right. Perfect, he said.
I can
We're gonna be
walk.
right here next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
What?
Okay, next, we will have a need for a brief executive session for legal matters following the meeting. So with that, that's it, so we can adjourn the work session. Thank you all. That's it?
Get disappointed with people that can't be honest.
Not much we can do, right? What are you missing? Oh, it's right there. This one's mine. Mine's blue. This is black. Mine's just a lighter shade of whatever you say.
And I don't drink.
I know you do.